I had always been fascinated by mirrors. As a child, I loved looking at my reflection and making silly faces. But as I got older, I began to notice something strange. Whenever I looked at myself in the mirror for too long, a feeling of unease would wash over me. It was as if there was something lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed. One day, I decided to experiment. I stood in front of the mirror in my bathroom and stared at my reflection. After a few minutes, I noticed that my reflection seemed to be moving independently of me. It was subtle at first, but as I kept staring, the movements became more and more pronounced. Suddenly, my reflection's eyes widened and it started to smile. It wasn't my smile, though. It was something much more sinister. I tried to look away, but I was frozen in place. Then, the lights flickered and went out. I was plunged into darkness, with only the faint glow of the moonlight coming in through the window. I could feel something breathing on the back of my neck, but when I turned around, there was nothing there. I stumbled out of the bathroom, my heart racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. And every time I passed a mirror, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The next day, I went to a psychic to try and make sense of what had happened. She told me that mirrors were gateways to other dimensions and that I had opened a door to a dark and dangerous place. I tried to put the experience behind me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me. Whenever I looked in the mirror, I saw a shadowy figure lurking just out of sight. It was always there, watching and waiting. Then, one night, I woke up to find the shadowy figure standing at the foot of my bed. It had glowing red eyes and a twisted smile. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure reached out and touched me, and I felt a cold, numbing sensation wash over me. It was like my soul was being drained away. I woke up the next morning, feeling exhausted and weak. I knew then that I had to do something to banish the shadow in the mirror. I consulted with a spiritualist, who gave me a ritual to perform. I stood in front of the mirror once again, this time armed with the ritual. I recited the incantation, feeling the power surging through me. The mirror cracked, and the shadowy figure let out a blood-curdling scream. When it was over, the figure was gone. I could feel a weight lifting off my shoulders. But I knew that I could never let my guard down around mirrors again. It was a late night, and I was channel surfing in my living room. Nothing good was on, and I was just about to give up when I stumbled upon a channel I'd never seen before, Channel 13. The channel was broadcasting an old black and white movie, something about a haunted house. I settled in to watch, hoping for a good scare. At first, everything seemed normal. The movie had all the usual tropes: creaky doors, ghostly whispers, and things that go bump in the night. But as the movie went on, I began to feel uneasy. It was like there was something in the room with me. I kept hearing strange noises, like whispers coming from the TV. And every time I looked away, I could feel eyes on me. But the weirdest thing was the movie itself. As the story unfolded, it started to feel less like a movie and more like a real-life haunting. The house in the movie was an exact replica of my own, right down to the creaky stairs and the clawfoot bathtub. I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself that it was just my imagination. But the longer I watched, the more convinced I became that something was wrong. Then, just as the movie was reaching its climax, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. It was the sound of footsteps, coming from upstairs. I paused the movie and listened, but the footsteps had stopped. I tried to convince myself that it was just the house settling, but I knew deep down that something was very wrong. I tried to turn off the TV and go to bed, but the remote wouldn't work. The channel had become stuck on channel 13, and the movie had started playing again, as if it had a life of its own. I sat there, paralyzed with fear, as the movie played out before me. The characters on screen were facing the same horrors that I was experiencing in real life. It was like the movie had somehow come to life. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The movie ended, the TV turned off, and the house was silent once again. I never watched Channel 13 again. But even now, I can feel the presence of the haunted movie lurking just beyond the edges of my reality, waiting to claim its next victim. I was on a road trip with some friends, driving through the countryside. We were having a great time, laughing and telling stories, and enjoying the scenery. But as we drove deeper into the countryside, the landscape began to change. The trees grew thicker, and the air grew colder. It was as if we had entered a different world. And then we saw an old, abandoned hotel, sitting on a hill in the distance. It looked like something out of a horror movie with boarded-up windows and a dilapidated exterior. As we got closer, we could see that the hotel had been abandoned for years. The paint was peeling, the roof was caving in, and the windows were all broken. But something about the place drew us in. We couldn't resist the temptation to explore. We parked the car and made our way up the hill to the hotel. The front door was boarded shut, but we found a way in through a side window. The interior was even worse than the exterior. The floors were creaky and unstable, the walls were covered in mold, and the air was thick with dust. But we were determined to explore every inch of the hotel. We made our way through the dark, musty corridors and up the stairs to the upper floors. And that's when things started to get really creepy. As we made our way down a long hallway, we heard strange noises coming from one of the rooms. It sounded like someone was whispering, and the sound was almost musical. We cautiously made our way to the room and pushed open the door. The room was empty, except for an old record player in the corner. It was playing an old, scratchy record, but there was no one there to turn it on. We were spooked, but we continued exploring. As we made our way down another hallway, we saw something that made us all stop in our tracks. At the end of the hallway, there was a woman standing in a white dress. She was looking down at the ground and didn't seem to notice us. We tried to talk to her, but she didn't respond. And when we tried to get closer, she disappeared into thin air. We were scared out of our minds, but we couldn't resist the urge to keep exploring. And that's when things got really strange. We started to notice that the hotel was changing. The walls and floors were no longer creaky and unstable, they were brand new, with fresh paint and new carpet. But there was something off about the new hotel. It was as if we were living in a different time period. The furniture was old-fashioned, and the clothes in the closets were from another era. And then we saw them, the ghosts of the former guests. They were everywhere, walking through the halls and going about their daily business. We tried to leave, but the hotel wouldn't let us. The doors were locked, and the windows wouldn't budge. We were trapped in a hotel that was both abandoned and fully alive. And we had no idea how to get out. As we frantically searched for a way out, we noticed that the ghosts seemed to be getting more and more agitated. They were no longer going about their business, they were staring at us, and we could feel their anger and frustration. We started to realize that we had disturbed something in the hotel, something that we shouldn't have. The ghosts were restless, and they wanted us gone. We tried breaking down doors and windows, but nothing worked. We were trapped, and the hotel was closing in on us. And then we heard a voice, a soft, gentle voice that seemed to come from nowhere. "Follow me," it said. "I can show you the way out." We didn't know what else to do, so we followed the voice. It led us through the halls and down a secret staircase, and then out into the night air. We were free, but we were changed. We had seen things that we couldn't explain, and we knew that the hotel would stay with us forever. We got back into the car and drove away from the hotel as fast as we could. But we knew that we would never forget what had happened there, and we would never be the same. As we drove into the night, we realized that there was still so much that we didn't know about the world. There were still mysteries and secrets waiting to be discovered. And we knew that we would never stop searching for them.